Um, Hi. All right. So I'm just going to do a little bit of reading from the second hub chapter. And we're starting on page 88. And it's beginning with sensation and touch. And I don't know, just before we start, I'm going to do a breath in for an inhale through the nose and an exhale through the mouth, like blowing out the candle. Just to settle in a bit. Just to kind of like, instead of just jumping right in, let's do another one. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. So this morning, as I've been working on things related to Parinama, it's picking up a lot of steam. It's happening a little bit faster. I knew it would happen fast, but it's still surprising to me. It's kind of this combination of like surprise, but also like exactly, it's kind of like what I expected. But anyhow, for anyone who has the book, who has read the book, one of the things that is really helpful for extending the reach is writing a review on Amazon. And this means it doesn't have to be just a written review if that feels like a little too onerous. You can also just put some stars in, depending on how you feel about it. But it's really, I mean, like people ask me, how they can be helpful. And like one of the things is like, I, my goal is to extend the reach of this, to make this accessible for folks. And one of the things about it is that I'm finding, and this is also not surprising, but also surprising kind of thing, is that folks who are executives, folks who already have a lot of power, like pretty much instantly recognize this as for being something of great interest to them because they relate to it, because they understand that they are already kind of using these concepts in a way that isn't actually organized into a framework. So it's really set, and it's been harder to get folks who, I guess you could categorize as having less power. Um, it's not as immediately recognizable, and that's my goal, is to get these concepts of like, honestly, like I guess you call it, like, I don't. It's like self mastery is kind of a little heavy handed, but to be able to have these tools because they are really potent and powerful, and yeah, yeah. So two things. One is extending the reach. Writing a review really helps on Amazon. And the other is, if this is a book that speaks to you, this is something that you really like people tell me they've like dreamed about it. People like I get it. um, but like people feeling a connection to it in ways that they're like, I really need to have it. But it's an expensive book to produce, so it's an expensive book. And I will, if you reach out to me directly, um, I will find a way to get you a copy, one way or the other. And also, it's available. There's a pretty significant sample on Amazon because it's such a big book that the sample is a percentage, so it winds up being a really big slice. So okay. So, but with that said, and also liking these videos is incredibly helpful because it tells YouTube that they're being watched and being interacted with, and commenting is like, I guess, kind of like the gold standard of that. So anyway, thank you for all of that. I'm going to start reading, and we're going to probably wrap it up. I have a call at 11, so we'll just kind of see how much juice I have for this. um yeah, so this one's pretty, the stuff gets pretty potent. I'm going to say, but I'm going to read, and I have something I want to talk about in terms of a technique related to sensation and touch. So I'm going to jump in. All right, finally, 5 minutes in. Woo! All right. So the language of the physical world is sensation, communicated through temperature, texture, tension, auditory vibration, visual stimulation, taste, and touch. Human touch is the sensation that's also an essential need. For a baby, through responsiveness and tenderness, touch expresses the relationship with its parents. Sights, smells, sounds, and tastes contribute to the exciting sensate experience of early life. But experiencing touch is our earliest. Let's see, I'm going to actually read that again, as it's like a little wonky how I was saying that. So, sights, smells, sounds, and tastes contribute to the exciting sensate experience of early life. But experiencing touch is our earliest understanding of feeling loved and safe. The early touch and responsiveness of our primary caregivers forms our emotional bedrock. Our first anger comes from inattention or separation. Hunger or physical discomfort is distressing, but our first strong emotions come from separation and distance. According to psychologist John Bowlby, considered to be the first attachment theorist, anger, rage, and sadness in infants and toddlers are common responses to disconnection and neglect. The central tenet of attachment theory is that young children need a relationship with at least one primary caregiver for their healthy emotional and social development. Psychologist and researcher Harry Harlow's baby rhesus monkey experiments in the 1950s and 60s clearly underscore the importance of comfort and touch. That said, the experiment's design was unethical and disturbing. Harlow separated baby monkeys from their real mothers for varying amounts of time, from months up to 1 year of their lives, and built their surrogate mother structures of wire and cloth. And built them. He provided the babies two wire mothers, one that produced food and one covered in fabric but without food. It was observed that the babies would only feed from the wire mother and then return and cling to the cloth mother. When Harlow eventually re-socialized these monkeys, the effect on their ability to integrate was devastating. He made note of severe, and this is quote, severe deficits in virtually every aspect of social behavior, end quote, for the monkeys that had never been nurtured by an attentive mother. These monkeys were disinterested in sex, but if they did have babies themselves, they were abusive and had to be removed from their cages. And I just want to take a moment with this is that um this is hard to read. Like I find this hard to read. I find this very sad. Like it's very evocative. And so if you have the same experience with this, I mean just to even just give ourselves a moment with it and let it be sad, you know? If it's like taking a breath or just kind of bringing presence to ourselves and just attending to ourselves. So I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that right now. It's sad. Okay, so I'm going to keep reading. So old parenting practice styles include the children should be seen and not heard concept, the I'll give you something to cry about threat, and perhaps more saddening, the spare the rod and spoil the child rhetoric. Some folks express pride in having survived what they refer to as real childhoods and shake. Let's see, sorry, I'm getting messages. And shake their heads at how soft kids have become and fear for their lack of preparation for the real world. Others speak of emotional needs using words like indulgent as they recall their parents managing tremendous stress and overcoming hardships, having learned to compartmentalize their hurt, loneliness, and pain. These crossed wires of familiarity and safety can lead to repeating patterns of harm. And because this part of our development happens before we have the capability of memory, it's coded into our reflexes and risks being passed down to the next generation unless it's consciously evaluated and reclaimed. Emotional literacy and physical sensation can feel like both a mystery and a vulnerability. Healthy development in this hub leads to awareness and feelings and emotions, including when we should postpone our own needs so we can be responsible for children or maintain adult relationships. But eventually, our own needs, feelings, and emotions must get time and attention, or we face chronic pain, numbness, stiffness, and blankness in our bodies, which can go unexamined and be misattributed as like completely due to aging. When emotional needs are not respected, feelings get dysregulated and our connection to sensation is experienced from a distance. Due to this detachment, any sensation and craving in our bodies can become adversarial when we fear and vilify natural impulses and meet them with harsh judgment, such as disgust at the sight of body fat, emotional neediness, and exhaustion. We may respond by pursuing punishing food restrictions and intense exercise, by escaping into workaholism, or by tuning out and then tuning into a screen. But for many folks, there's a false correlation of restriction and for many folks, there's a false correlation of restriction with moral superiority. Wow, this is really loaded. There's a lot in here. Like reading it, I'm like, woo! Oh my gosh, a lot to say on this. I'm going to keep reading because I find that sometimes I'm like sort of director's cutting this and then the next paragraph addresses it. So anyway, living fully in expanding capacity in this hub involves increasing how much pleasure and enjoyment can be felt before discomfort arises, how big your container for joy is. Your ability to do this is often an inheritance from generations of your family before you. If these people's lives were interrupted by war, poverty, or violence, we often carry the effects of the traumas of our ancestors passed down from parenting and even genetics. The source of our trauma and the hold of addiction come from sensation and stimulation that are above and beyond our existing capacity to process and handle them. Psychologist and associate clinical professor Daniel P. Brown at Harvard Medical School identifies 5 essentials for early experience with caregivers. These are the real thing. So, yeah, and also, rest in peace, Dan Brown, who has since passed. But so here are the real things as far as like, what is it, the cravings at the heart of craving and at the heart of any compulsion and any behavior, like if we find ourselves really like leaning in to like so-called vices, it's like what are we pacifying as a surging feeling that's underlying. So here's the real thing. It's safety and protection, attunement, soothing and comfort, express delight. So your parents express delight in your existence, support and encouragement for your self-development. Compulsive or addictive behaviors are ultimately unsatisfying replacements for the real thing, and counterfeit soothing through adult pacifiers may be the only tool we know. No childhood is all good or all bad. There are always happy things and always upsetting things. Struggle makes us strong, but sometimes this strength comes at the expense of softer qualities that support the joys of feeling fully alive. Yes. Yeah. I'll take a moment with that. Building emotional capacity increases the power to maintain the fullness of life and acts as an accelerant to fulfilling achievement. Brown's power exercise video, Imagine Ideal Parents, can be soothing and healing for this hub. So Yeah, that's actually, you can actually find that. It's on YouTube, I believe, still. Um, and to the point of imagining ideal parents, and in on the topic of sensation and touch, um, I find ASMR videos. There's someone on YouTube actually, and what is the name of her channel? It is, oh my gosh, I'll find it. Gentle Whispering is on YouTube. And she does, for me, this very caring, attentive style, very maternal. Like in one of them that I watched, she like was showing like a card that her daughter drew. And that actually has some of the qualities of the Dan Brown methodology of like really bringing these feelings into ourselves of being adored and cared for. So if put it in the comments if you'd like me to kind of find the Dan Brown video, put like list it in the comments that you'd like me to provide the link for that, and also the Gentle Whispering. You can search it on YouTube, or if you'd like me to provide a link to a specific video, I think that is really yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So one of the things I just want to speak to before signing off here is there's a notion, and I grew up with a lot of it. I imagine most people did, which is this thing about kids being too soft, and that, kids not being competitive. And I think one of the things about when this is age appropriate to bring this on board is important in terms of our neurology, like the development of our nervous system, especially in the first hub development, especially for babies. Like there just isn't the capability to comprehend like toughness, so to speak, and the spare the rod, spoil the child thing. I think like one of the things I guess that like really sticks in my mind as an anecdote is that the people who had in my life the strongest position about like their disdain for the weakness in others were really blocked in their effectiveness personally. I didn't really observe people that I thought were like incredibly admirable or even successful as leaders who had that kind of rigid toughness. I think leaders that I've worked with that really lean into fear kind of cut off the capability of the folks that work for them. And, and then of course, when it's too permissive, which is pendular, then what happens is the rigor isn't there. So there is like, this isn't, I think that there's a tendency for like the pendulum to swing where it's like it goes too far this way and then it goes too far the other way. And in some ways, I think that some things that are happening right now that you see is like maybe pendular, but point being that, is it like the importance of nurture and the hunger for it, and you can see it in babies and you can see it in young children, is just the hunger for touch. And that the loss of that is an adaptation for survival, because even as adults we have it. So anyway, that's like, this is a heavy one. This is for me it is. I don't know if it's universal, like kind of, but this also has, I will say that as we get more into this does have implications, are very practical in terms of like, one of the things when people get really tough professionally, like when you get like the toughness, what happens is like it creates this rigidity and this idea that like work is work and it's like tough, tough, tough. And it's kind of like in your career as an individual contributor, that toughness can really like take you all the way to the top of that tier. But as you become like enter into leadership and even being part of teams that are like that ultimately you're transitioning into being responsible for others, it really becomes increasingly important to be able to attune with others and to actually like be like kind of like have that kind of like second hub buoyancy in terms of being able to be responsive and work with people in ways that like create comfort for them and familiarity and even be like kind of enjoyable in a way that I think is like oddly enough you'd think that as an individual contributor that's more of a thing, but I think one of the things that happens is people that are too in the second hub of like having too much fun as individual contributors wind up never making it up far enough, if they don't have the kind of rigor and the drive. So some of this transition is kind of again in the nuance. So anyhow, I think we did it. We did it. We did our 20 minutes. So anyhow, and also just a kind of an update if you've made it this far, um, that I am so for this month, I'm working on really like some like structuring and conceptual stuff, as far as like building out frameworks. And even I'd intended to be doing more of the structured videos, but as it just turns out, I'm kind of letting myself take this month to really restore myself as well, like to so I'm kind of following my own arrow in a sense as well. So there's that. So but anyway, what can be expected is there's going to be some really applied practical methodologies, and also there's going to be some more videos coming. That's one thing that can be expected, yeah, soon. So anyway, thank you, and I'm looking forward to the next one. See you soon. Bye.